not like I was some kind of get-along pop artist, and now I've decided in my elder years to be a problem. I mean, I've always been a problem.
Welcome to episode 97 of the Hipsters United podcast. My name is Chris, and joining me this week are Jill.
Hello.
And Susan.
Hi.
There's a lot of stuff to cover since our last podcast, which I don't even remember when it was. It was, I think, the end of October. But let's start off with some discussion of the final show of the Oceania Tour, which took place in Brooklyn on December 10th, 2012. This show was noteworthy for a number of reasons, one being that the show was initially planned for October 31st, but was rescheduled because of Hurricane Sandy. Another, that the show included a performance of the song formerly known as Black Sunshine, but which is now called The Dream Machine. But most noteworthy is the fact that the entire show was filmed in 3D for a possible theatrical and retail release. Jill, you actually attended this show, so even though it's been a reasonable amount of time now, could you tell us your thoughts and your remembrances of the show?
Yeah, sure. So it was actually, we were really excited to go to the Halloween show that had been originally scheduled because I think, as you would have guessed, there would have been a lot of costumes, and it was one of the very first shows that they had scheduled at the new Barclays Arena in Brooklyn, which is kind of like the home to the Brooklyn Nets and other teams to be here in Brooklyn. So since it got rescheduled, we didn't know exactly what to expect. And as a result, going into the show, we had actually heard that there were a number of promotions going on to try and what I perceived, to be fill the seats. They were, at the very last minute, they started opening up, I think, $25 tickets to that were designed to go straight to charity for Sandy relief. But anyway, it was our first trip to the Barclays Arena, and I was really impressed with the arena itself. It's actually really a cool place to see a show, and it's really pretty close to my house here in Brooklyn. So it was, had I wanted to walk to the Smashing Pumpkins show, I could have. It was just kind of cold outside, which was kind of awesome. But anyway, I thought, they did the same shtick. They played all of Oceania all the way through. And then, they played a bunch of the hits. I thought it was a really solid show. My personal thoughts about what stood out, certainly XYU was awesome. They played Hummer and Cherub Rock, and the audience went crazy for it. But I know this seems a little bit nostalgic or goofy, but even after seeing Tonight on tour bazillions of times, seeing it with the accompaniment on that giant glowing orb and all of the sort of old Georges Méliès footage was pretty awesome. I mean, it was really a very emotional sort of nostalgic experience. And to be honest, there were a lot of different sort of NYC music folk in attendance at the show. And I didn't see a single bad review of the show itself. I thought there were quite a few different people that were really into it. Matthew Perpetua, who we've covered many times on the blog, he was really down with the show. Maura Johnston, formerly of the Village Voice, really, really enjoyed it. So I personally thought it was great. I thought the crowd had a really good reception to it, and it was, overall a really solid show. So I enjoyed it.
Do you remember anything about The Dream Machine, the new song that was played?
Honestly, it felt more like, to me, it felt more like, I don't want to say a droney song, but it was more like in that vein of the the tripped out sort of United States versions where it just would kind of get into a trance almost. I thought it was, Zach came with me, and I don't know that he was way into it, but I think that the song had potential. I don't know. At this point, there's actually, we recorded the show, and we can, link to the recording if people want to hear it. So that entire Dream Machine turned out really well if you want to take a listen.
I'll try and remember to link to that from the show notes on hipstersunited.com. If you're listening to this, check it out there.
Awesome. And then, oh, sorry, go ahead, Susan.
Oh no, I think I was just gonna say very briefly. I think your United States comparison is pretty apt. I think actually, as far as the style of that stuff. So,
yeah, it's more like a meditation almost. It feels like, and it was really in the same vein I thought as they played. Like normal, they play, or like during the rest of the tour, they played the cover of David Bowie's Space Oddity. So it sort of felt that, same tripped out, spacey vibe, 70s kind of, I don't know, guitar heavy drone. So it was cool. I thought, to be completely honest, like, I know that the whole concept of playing the album front to back has received I think it's received fairly good press, maybe some mixed reviews. I think personally, it was interesting to hear the entire album, but from a live perspective, it kind of lost steam in parts because people just really didn't know, like half of the album. So it was an interesting experience just from the standpoint of it being completist, but also suffering from maybe, a little bit of doldrums in parts. So it's just hard to keep people. It was like 28 or 26 songs, something like that. It was crazy. It's a crazy long show. So
now you saw them. Was it in June in New York? Like they played that sort of exclusive show, and they played some of the same songs. Like how did that compare? Because that was at the very beginning of the tour, and then the very end. So
the place that we saw them was for this iHeartRadio show, which also was professionally filmed, and that was a much shorter show for kind of a limited number of people. And the reason that I think we got invited to it in a roundabout way, and we got, some tickets to give away on the blog, which was awesome. The energy, I would say that like, it was refreshing to see the Pumpkins in a big arena setting again, because they seemed to do extremely well. Like they took a good shine to it. I haven't seen them in an arena setting in forever. We're talking like, 15 years probably, notwithstanding Zwan maybe. But the actual like iHeartRadio show was so small. I think there were maybe like 150 or 200 people there, that it was just a totally different vibe. And I don't know. They played Space Oddity at that show as well, but the iHeartRadio show really was only like maybe 10 or 11 songs.
So did you notice the 3D cameras and things filming it and things like that? Like, were people there aware that they were doing this? Because there was nothing in advance of this that let anyone know that. I don't think
hot model ad.
That's true.
If you checked that a couple days before, and you're a hot model, you might have put two and two together.
Yeah, it was sort of like when we saw them at Terminal 5 when they were filming that I think it was Spin Magazine, RIP, their 25th year anniversary show. They did like all of these different camera rigs that swept down across the audience and so forth, and that was kind of like the same thing at this show. We actually stood right next to one of the cameramen, and I talked to him a little bit afterwards, and so he gave me a little information about like the promotional company that was putting it together, which is how we ended up finding those calls for hot models to be, on the front row of the venue, for I guess for 3D purposes, but certainly you don't want unattractive people in 3D. But they just said that it's something that they were just putting together for this one specific show, and I don't know. I mean, the guys that I spoke with didn't have really any idea what it was going to be used for. I assume that they were going to, be putting it together as some sort of commercial thing. But then we found on Facebook there were a number of posts from the promotional company that put it together, including like, the behind the scenes footage of the camera crew or the production crew looking at the multi-camera views and stuff. So I don't know what exactly they're planning on doing with it, but I'm sure it's going to be a really cool video, regardless of what they end up doing with it, because they played really well. You can kind of tell when the band is holding their tongues in check a little bit for a specific commercial reason, and I think that that's what they were doing here. Billy didn't really lay into New York sports like he usually does. So,
well, Billy, in this interview that he did recently, like at the end of the year, tail end of 2012, he did an interview with Crestfallen, and one of the things he said in there is that they really wanted to document the tour and the orb, but like financially it was going to be really challenging, especially given they're playing big arenas. And so he said that there's like a demand for people who have HD or even 3D TVs in certain markets. They want to get, like there's like whole, I mean, I don't even have cable, but like I know that there are like whole stations where it's just like concerts, right?
Yeah.
So there's a demand for that. And I guess the implication, I mean, he didn't really say this, but I sort of got the implication that maybe there was like some financial support, like the production company was willing to foot part of it because they can then use this footage on their like, for people who have like super fancy TVs or whatever. So it seemed like, it was like a good financial deal in a way, for them to document the tour. So I guess, and he was also saying, it could be a commercial release as well. So I guess they just have a bunch of options with what they can do with the footage. I did see, there's a Facebook page for the Oceania, like, concert film now.
Right.
And they said, like, I think it was like a week or so ago that, like, a trailer is coming soon. So,
cool.
I mean, it would be something cool. I certainly don't have the 3D television to watch it on, but, I would definitely, I have a big regret that I didn't get to see them on this tour with the orb. It just didn't work out. So I would definitely like to see it. Would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and they aired, I remember when If All Goes Wrong came out, they aired that in movie theaters on a very limited run, obviously. It was, I think, only one day and only in very few theaters. But they do things like that at movie theaters pretty often where they have, major events. Or I remember my fiance is a big fan of Phantom of the Opera, and we saw Phantom of the Opera, a performance at a movie theater that was being simulcast from someplace. So this obviously wouldn't be simulcast, but that idea of showing, one-time type of events at movie theaters is fairly common. So I could see them doing that again here, especially, with the whole 3D tie-in, since movie theaters have all this equipment now to show 3D stuff, and 3D movies are becoming more and more common. So it'd be interesting to see if they do that.
Well, didn't they... I have to jog my memory here. Maybe you guys can help me. Didn't they actually do like a limited screening of the documentary alongside?
Right, If All Goes Wrong. Yeah.
I mean, they did. That was only in a few different markets, I thought, but they did that at one point.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't imagining that.
Yeah, and I didn't get to check that out. It came near Columbus, but it was in a theater that was very far south of the city. So I remember it was not a very wide release, but they did it. And unfortunately, we never hear like how successful any of these things are.
Yeah.
And you can, every once in a while after a tour or something, Billy will say something like during that interview that Susan mentioned on Crestfallen, Billy said that this tour was one of the most well-reviewed tours he's ever had in his career, which was kind of interesting. But we never get a sense of what the financials are for any of these things and how financially successful they are, except whether or not they continue to do it in the future. Like we always, talk about, the band is going to be releasing the soundboard recordings of the shows, and and it's an interesting idea, and I wonder how well it'll do, and we never find out how well it did, except whether or not the band keeps doing it again in the future. So I really wish that we had some way of finding out how well these things do.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, and if anything, I feel like some of these sorts of productions are really good promotional fodder for all sorts of different things. So, I mean, if there's no better way to, try and make a viral video go wild than, have really nice assets like that you can flaunt on YouTube or on your website or whatever. So hopefully it'll be good PR for them.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was fun. I'm sorry you didn't get to see it, Susan.
Well, I mean, it's funny. It was just one of those. This fall was just not the greatest time. I had a bunch of stuff with work. I had some weddings that I had committed to go to, and the tour dates started coming out. And it's actually, I mean, not to talk about HU too much, but I think actually when we realized that, like, we weren't going to actually be able to go see the band in 2013, that really made us start to question whether we should continue with the blog. We can't even get it together. I mean, we would have flown to see them if there was any weekend that would have worked where I didn't have to take an extra day off work, because I literally had no time off left, and because all my time off had been devoted to like family things and pre-committed to weddings and different things like that, and there was just no way we could make it work. It was just sort of ridiculous. So anyway, 2013.
Any plans to go to Europe to go see the band?
It's funny. I actually, when I was doing my master's research, I did my master's research in Lyon, in France, and not far from there is a smaller city called Vienne, and they're playing that city. Vienne is known because it has, like, amazing. You may know this, Jill. Like, you were like a French major, weren't you? Were you a French major or something?
I studied in the south of France at one point.
Okay, so they had, lots of Roman ruins there, and I had meant to go there when I was doing my master's research, and I didn't, and I was like, oh, when I'm doing my doctoral research, I'll go back, and I'll definitely go see all the ruins. And of course, when I was doing my doctoral research, I dropped out before I did my grad school, before I did my doctoral research. So I've never gone there, and they're playing this Roman amphitheater.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, oh, that would be so mind-blowing, and it was like, I always wanted to go there, and I don't know, we'll see. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, the Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness reissue was released in early December, and by now we've had a chance to enjoy the bonus material, read Billy's thoughts on the album tracks, and make beautiful collages of starry skies. Well, at least those of us who bought it have, so this is something I guess we should talk about first, is that this has definitely been one of the priciest of the reissues so far by a long shot, like not even reasonably close in comparison to any of the other reissues. How did that influence you guys' decision whether or not to purchase it? I did buy the deluxe package with the decoupage kit and everything, but I definitely thought about it a lot longer than I did for the other reissues.
Well, so I had just been assuming we were going to buy the deluxe box set. We had not, we'd not pre-ordered it or anything. And if I had seen this is one where if I had seen a really good pre-order price for the deluxe box set, I would have snapped on it on Amazon, sort of lock in the price, because I thought the price was so high. And just given everything else that we had this fall, like I've kind of already said, we had travel, like wedding, like we just had all these added expenses this fall, it seemed like. And so the day it came out, we've been buying them the day they came out in store. And so I'm at work, I'm in my office, and Jason had told me he was going to go buy it at Waterloo Records. So I'm sitting in my office, which is a local record store here in Austin. Get this call from Jason. And he had told me in the morning he was going to buy it. And I'm like, okay, And he was like, I'm here at Waterloo. I'm like, yeah? He's like, this thing's $140. And I said, yeah, didn't you know that? And he's like, we quit the blog. I don't know anything anymore. And I'm like, yeah, it's like pretty expensive, hon. And he's like, I just can't do this. And so, and we didn't buy it. And I think we will eventually, but we went and bought the MP3s on Amazon for like, I don't know, however much it was, like $30 or something, 30 some bucks. So we have all the tracks. I can't decoupage. And
oh no.
I know. It's kind of heartbreaking in a way because I personally really love, I mean, I almost wish that we had gotten it on iTunes because I think we could have gotten a PDF of the liner notes and I could have poured over a little bit, but I mean, I think I've said on this podcast before, I don't really fetishize like boxed material or, you know, things that collect dust in my house that much. I generally, for most bands, I just prefer to get the MP3s. There's only like 2 bands where I really want to have the physical album, and that's like the Pumpkins and like Tori Amos, who are like my 2 like biggest musical like loves. And I don't know. I think we'll get it eventually, but we've just got to save for it. And I think if it had been a different fall for us and like just personally, we might have gone for it, but it had just been one thing after another. And it was funny because I had said to Jason repeatedly over the fall, "Are we going to buy it?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course we're going to buy it." But like all that time, he didn't realize how much it was going to cost. And I was like, "Okay, well, we're going to buy it then." You're like, "You're going to buy it."
Yeah, I actually went to Vintage Vinyl, which is the local record store here in St. Louis, and they didn't even have it. So they had some of the others. They had the Pisces box and I believe the Siamese Dream one. But they did not have the Mellon Collie box. I ended up getting it from Amazon, but the packaging really is very impressive. It's a step above any of the others by far. I was kind of disappointed. One of the discs was damaged. So I ended up having to get Jason to send me 2 of the audio tracks from the bonus material. But besides that, I mean, the liner notes are really nice. Like they have a blown up version of the original Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness liner notes, so the kind of the brownish booklet with each song has its own page, and there's a little graphical icon above each song, and they have that, but it's huge. It's kind of the size of a vinyl record, so that's kind of neat.
That's cool.
And they also have a separate full color booklet with a whole bunch of artwork and notes from Billy and things, and it has a lot of I think one of these got posted, not sure where, but it was Billy's initial kind of designs for the Mellon Collie artwork, where he kind of drew a stick figure of a person sitting in a plane, and he wrote a note about, like, you know, bird flying plane or something like that, and then of course it became the picture that's on one of the pages of the liner notes. So, and there's a lot of those actually, so it's really amusing to look at it and see how little the artist was given to work with, and how it ended up becoming this really great iconic artwork, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But of any era, Mellon Collie was probably one that hardcore fans had the most bootlegged material from, between leaked items like the Sadlands demos and, you know, multiple collections of rehearsal jams that Billy leaked himself back in the late 90s. So I was kind of worried about the bonus material, especially when, I mean, on crestfallen.com there was a song-by-song summary, and I remember a lot of days I went there and the summary was just like, you know, instrumental jam or something, and I'm not a big fan of the instrumental jams. I have never really looked forward to full-length Pistachio medley songs unless, you know, it's an actual song with lyrics and not just, you know, the 10 seconds from Pistachio medley looped over and over for 3 minutes. That doesn't really excite me very much, but I was very pleasantly surprised by the bonus material. It seems like he did a really good job, this is Billy, of course, of picking out. I'd have to go back and check, but I think they picked out something for every single song from Mellon Collie. So there's some sort of, you know, different mix or, you know, demo version or something for every single song of this double album, plus all of the bonus material like the barbershop version of Jupiter's Lament and just the random other songs that never got released, like Speed and Wishing You Were Real, which we all remember from the original Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness demos. That was another thing I was really happy with. That was the first bootleg I ever got. I bought it for $5 on cassette from someone back in like 1996.
Nice.
And it was so much better quality on this in this bonus material, and I had forgotten because I only had it on cassette. I mean, I haven't played cassettes since 1998 or 1999. I'd forgotten how many songs that were actually on there that were just, you know, Billy and acoustic guitar, and Billy singing very high. If you remember those demos, Billy sung like a register higher than he normally does. And of course the few lyrical changes like the Constable and Lily, my one and only. So I was really happy even with that material, even though it was stuff we already had, quote unquote. This is definitely worth it to get upgraded versions of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really thrilled with it. Like, I think I've talked about this before, but I had that copy, I think it was Guitar World 97, when Aeroplane Flies High comes out, where he talks about all the various Aeroplane songs, and this was like the absolute height of my obsession with the Pumpkins, probably. It was like 1997, 1998, and I was in like 8th, 9th grade, whatever I was in, and I just remember just like looking over and over and over and over, like I don't know how many times I've read that article. And so the thing that always stuck out to me, one of the things, was the barbershop quartet version of Jupiter's Lament. And so that was like kind of like a holy grail song for me. It was pretty exciting. I mean, I don't know if it actually lived up to the hype that I had built in my mind, but it was still really cool to hear that. So, I don't know.
I think the only song that they did not include from the Mellon Collie demos, the Sadlands demos, was the demo of Marquise and Spades. I think every other one they included, and it's too bad because that Marquise and Spades demo is pretty amusing. At one point, Billy doesn't have words for part of it, and so he sings something, something, yeah!
And you imagine why he didn't include it, right?
Yeah. The noted perfectionist didn't include his rough vocals.
That's funny. Yeah, the thing so for me, what's really confusing to me is or what's really been difficult for me to reconcile is how the deluxe box set, I mean, I feel like their strategy for this box set was different too, because the deluxe box set had the CDs and didn't have any vinyl in it, and the vinyl doesn't have any of the extras that the deluxe box set has. So I know that, I don't know. I mean, basically,
this is actually something that Billy talked about in that Crestfallen interview, which
right.
I can talk about in a second, but I don't want to cut you off. But yeah.
No, I mean, it's just like the whole decision-making process has been a little harder because it was easy for me to justify buying both the vinyl and the deluxe box sets because of the price point on the other albums. Whereas with this one, if I was all in on both the deluxe box set and the vinyl, I'd be out like $250 or something. So to date, I still haven't actually made my decision. So I'm still pinching my pennies, saving my money to figure out what I'm actually going to do on this. Have you guys watched the DVD, or have you?
I haven't, because we didn't buy the box set. I guess Chris, you can.
Yeah, I actually haven't watched it yet. It's funny, like that's one of the things that even when the Lucky 13 did their survey last year, it's always something that comes up, people wanting DVDs and stuff, and I'm totally the opposite. I have many more opportunities in my life to listen to things than I do to watch things. Mm-hmm. So I can listen to music when I'm at work, when I'm at the gym, when I'm in the car, and to watch a DVD, I actually have to have a block of 2 hours to sit and watch. And I mean, I'll definitely watch it at some point, but haven't gotten around to it yet. But it's definitely a really nice box, and
I would love to watch. I mean, I watched all the other DVDs once, and you're right. It's something that I really like. I mean, I know there's and really it's been growing, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years. There's a big community of people who are like way more into video recordings than they are to audio recordings. And so there's a whole little community clustering around that right now in the fandom, which is kind of cool. I'm one of those people that I'm with Chris. I don't really have a ton of time to sit around and watch, but like I definitely enjoyed watching the other DVDs and like giving up the deluxe box set. I mean, I don't have the DVD, which is a big bummer because I would definitely, sit down and watch that. I think we will get it at some point. Just have to kind of save our pennies a little bit until then. But yeah, no, I think it's harder for me to sort of budget the time to watch a DVD. But just like something like, If All Goes Wrong. I mean, that's one of my favorite things the Pumpkins have ever done, actually.
Yeah.
I just love, I'll watch that over and over. So I do like video, just finding the time to watch it.
And I definitely don't complain that they do it because I can always just rip the video and listen to the audio in my car when I want to. So I have no problem with them releasing DVDs or anything. That's great. It's just my personal preferences for audio. One
thing, Jill, when you were saying regarding, the fact that the bonus tracks aren't on vinyl, Billy said in this interview with Crestfallen that he does have a desire at the end of the reissue project. He would like to release all the bonus tracks from all the reissues on vinyl and just have them be in one package together, which was kind of interesting. And he said, they made the call to just have the, reissued vinyl just be the album because, that'd be more accessible to a non kind of hardcore fan. But they think there is a market for the bonus tracks on vinyl and they'd like to do them all as like part of one package. I'm sure that would probably be a fairly premium price at the end of all this. Right. But I just think that was like fairly interesting for those who do collect vinyl, that they hope to do that. Of course, I guess it's, I don't know. He said that one of the things he did say on there is that the reissues have been selling pretty well. It's been the project's been pretty successful, so he feels like they have an argument to do more things going forward, hopefully. So that was kind of a positive thing to hear as well. Cool. But, oh, sorry.
No, I mean, I totally hear that argument, and there's a whole wave of, I think, older acts that are reissuing their albums on the 180-gram heavyweight vinyl right now. I personally really like listening to vinyl, so, like, I don't buy much vinyl, but the albums that are, like, my favorite albums of all time, I like to get them on vinyl so I can sort of have that experience. And so while I understand preserving the integrity of like the original playlist and so forth, the vinyl itself, the reissue, is just so expensive compared to even like the Beatles. Like when the Beatles reissued the White Album, it was like $50. It was half the price of what, for a double album, I believe it was about half the price. And it's just, I guess I was just sort of surprised to see the price point and the decision to not be all inclusive. So I don't know. It's just it's an interesting, I mean, when you're trying to do a project like this, my God, there's like a million different options that you could offer and decisions that you could make. So I'm sure it was really hard to figure out what they wanted to do, but
one of the things that Jason told me about his theory about the deluxe box set, and this is going to sound really stupid, but one of the qualms I had about the deluxe box set was that it wasn't going to line up beside the other box sets in a neat little line. Like, I'm not really OCD, but like,
yeah, it definitely doesn't.
But Jason said that his feeling was that he felt like Billy was trying to make an argument for this album as like his, like masterwork or whatever, or at least. Even if he doesn't feel that way, it's viewed in the eyes of the public, or the eyes of many, as kind of like the big album that they did. And so really by having such a deluxe box set and having such luxurious packaging and having it at that price point, it's almost like he's making an argument that like this is one of the greatest albums of all time or whatever, and so that he felt like that was the reason. Because we were having a conversation like what's going to happen with Adore and with, Machina. Are they going to be more back towards the price point of Gish and Siamese Dream and Pisces? And like our conclusion was probably yes, because we felt like there was just a move to kind of set Mellon Collie apart from the other albums, and it was kind of PR and artistic move to kind of say, this is it, folks, So, I don't know. I thought that was Jason said that, and I was like, I guess I can see that. Doesn't really help my budget right now, but
right. Well, I would also imagine. I mean, I totally agree with you there because I think that there is sort of a definitive stance on this album, and I mean, I guess also like just the production costs of these things are incredibly high. So when you're pressing just a single vinyl, I'm sure it's like not quite the same as when you're pressing 4 of them. And have the packaging alone on vinyl is crazy, and generally you have to go to like a boutique artist management shop. I know of a couple of them here in New York that do that kind of thing where they design packaging like this, but it's always way expensive, and I'm sure they don't make a ton of money off of the markup on all of the packaging either. So it's like I said, I think it's a really cool thing that they've done. It's definitely a different economic decision for people to make when you're talking about $140 versus $20 here or there.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I see people in the O board, like I lurk in the O board a whole lot these days, especially now that H2's gone, which maybe that's kind of a pitiful thing to have admitted, but I'm on the O board a lot, and I see a lot of people talking about it. And the thing for me is that, pumpkins are definitely one of my enduring interests, right? But, like, it's not my only interest. Like, I have other hobbies. I have a lot of things. And if, like, pumpkins are, like, your one big thing, yeah, you're totally going to, go out and buy the box set the day it comes out. But if you have, like, I collect some other things. So, like, it takes, when you have, like, 5 interests and you're doing them all and when you have a young family, it's just hard, to make it all work. But I don't know, kind of.
I think an X factor is going to be the Aeroplane Flies High reissue, and how much that costs. Because it sounds like, I mean, some people are saying, well, if Mellon Collie is a double album and it has 3 discs of bonus material, well then surely Aeroplane Flies High is a 5-disc box set. It'll have 10 discs of bonus material. But in that interview on Crestfallen, Billy said it's looking like it's going to be just 1 disc of bonus material for Aeroplane, and it does seem like from listening to that interview that the focus for that really is going to be on the vinyl issue, because that did never come out on vinyl originally. So
yeah, I'm excited to hear word of that. I mean, I'm hopeful that we'll hear word of that in the next few months, but maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, I would certainly hope so. You'd think they'd want to line up Adore to come out around Christmas time, because they've been trying to line up something at Christmas time every year so far, and it would make more sense to do that than Aeroplane Flies High. I imagine the audience for the Aeroplane Flies High reissue would be less than Adore, even though Adore was not one of Billy's most loved albums like Mellon Collie was.
Well, it's hard to know, because Billy said when they were doing I think this was back in 2011 when they were doing the VIP Q&As on their tour. He told, I think it was in Boston, don't quote me on this, but if you go to, like, look up those on YouTube, he told, like, a group of fans that he was contractually obligated to have all the reissues out by 2013. So that would put, like, both Machina and Adore coming out at Christmas, right? Now, I don't know. I mean, that seems like a fairly tight timeline, given how things have gone, and things have seemingly gone fairly slow since the departure of Carrie Brown. But I don't know. Then I saw somebody said on the Oval, or maybe Monty posted something like, well, EMI is gone now, right? Because Universal bought EMI, and I'm like, yeah, but does that really invalidate the contract that they had, like, prior to...
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, I don't know. Who the heck knows? I mean, they could have gone, any number of things could have happened. But if you take that 2011 VIP interview at its word, you would expect both Adore and Machina to be out at Christmas, Like, so, I don't know.
Yeah, and they would need to hurry up with Aeroplane, at least with announcing something. So you're right. Hopefully we will hear something about that soon.
And with the store down, too. Who knows?
Yeah, I was gonna say that also. So the official store on SmashingPumpkins.com is on hiatus for the near future. I think they're saying a minimum at least of a few months that it would be down. I would imagine they would not want to release a reissue like this without an operating online store. So
That would be my guess. Is they would. My guess, honestly, is that the store would return at the same time the pre-order
Right.
for Aeroplane is announced. Honestly, um, but who am I to? It's my pure speculation. But yeah.
that's all for part one of our podcast conversation with Susan and Jill. Part two will come out soon, and that one we talk a little bit about the Lucky 13 project and what we expect and are hoping for from the Pumpkins in 2013. So for now, good night, everybody. The Hipsters United podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Smashing Pumpkins, Virgin Records, or Warner Brothers Reprise Records. All opinions offered by panelists or guests of the Hipsters United podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of the Smashing Pumpkins. All audio during the show is licensed for nonprofit use per the terms and conditions on the Live Music Archive at archive.org. Intro music is from the Machina 2 album released for free download on the internet by the Smashing Pumpkins in September of 2000.